This conference will now be recorded.
So in last class, I was explaining the basic flow of Docker. If I want to deploy one application as a container, what it takes, right? We took this application as an example. We took this application as an example. This application as an example. We were trying to deploy this application as a container. So what we have done? We have one server. We created one server, Ubuntu server, where we installed Docker. So let me connect to that machine. Here we have installed Docker. And we clone the project. The project is already cloned. This project is already cloned in that server. We clone this project, which is already done. Guys, I see some people, they are executing commands like this. I didn't saw in detail yesterday because I was not well. Some people are executing this way. It is saying clone not found, but still they are saying, there are some issue. The Git is already done. You should be already aware how to clone the project, right? And make sure whatever command you are executing, whether it is executed successfully or not. Without checking whether it is successful or not, they're trying to do CD to that project. That is not going to work. And also one more thing I have said, they have cloned the project. They didn't change the directory. They're directly checking here, Docker file, getting this message, no such file or directory. So that's what, don't blindly execute the commands. Understand the concept so that you can easily do. Why I'm getting no such file or directory? Because do I have a Docker file in the current directory? Or the Docker file is there in this directory, in this application? That is part of that application. Inside this we have, right? So here if you do the cat, you can see the Docker file. But you are checking the file somewhere else and you are saying no Docker file. There is no Docker file. That is not correct. So we have a Docker file. And also we created an application package. We created a Docker image. So what is the command? Today we will understand all the image related commands. What is the command to create an image? Docker command to create an image. What is the command to create image? Docker image. It's a Docker build -t image. That image tag. Docker build context. This is build context. So most of the cases you see dot. What the dot represents? The dot represents current directory. So from which directory you are trying to build the image? So do I need to, if I give a dot here, do I need to make sure the Docker file is in this directory, the current directory where I'm executing this command, and also whatever files you are trying to copy. In your Docker file, you are trying to copy some files. Does that directories also should be part of that build context? So if I execute this command like this, Docker build -t, what is -t stands for? We already told in the last session. the tag. The tag. We are tagging the image with what? We are tagging the image with what? This image is basically this way: registry slash repository colon tag. So as of now, I am tagging my image with this one. What is this? This is my Docker Hub registry name. Docker Hub. I am using Docker Hub registry. Within that registry, what is this? We already discussed what is registry, what is repository, right? So this is repository. So what is this? After colon, whatever I give here, the tag of that image. If I don't mention this, what will be the default tag it will take? It will consider colon latest. Okay. So we created an image like this. If I execute this command from different folder, will it work? Sorry. Suppose I am going to execute this command from here. In this current directory, do I have that build context which I am trying to copy the Docker file and all? No. So instead of giving that, can I give something like this? This folder name, the build context. Or can I execute that command, the dot command, going inside the folder? If I don't want to give this path this way, can I go inside this folder and execute Docker build with that dot build context as a dot current directory? You can do that, right? So let me do whatever you can, like let me go inside. We already created an image, but let me show once again. We already created image, and see whether image is created successfully or is there any failures. Don't blindly say like this is not working. First try to understand what it is trying to say. The more errors you get, the more subject you learn, right? First try to understand the errors, try to check what it is trying to say, what is the problem it is trying to say, then you can apply. So in this case, do I have any issues? Is image is successfully created and tagged? Now image is created successfully and tagged. Now I want to see the images which is there locally. I want to see all the local images. What command I can see? I want to see the images locally. What are the images I have locally? Docker images or Docker image ls. It is going to list images. Now if you see that command, can I execute from any directory in that server, or I need to execute that one from the same folder? The Docker images, push, all those things, push, pull, run, can I execute anywhere? That you can execute from any directory. It no need to be in the same directory. We created an image, but is that image is available as a file? Can I see that image as a single file? We created this image. Will I able to see that as a file, that image as a file? No. As I told already, image is basically a multiple layers of the files. Where all those layers has been maintained, where that image information is going to be maintained locally. What is the Docker working directory? Under varlib Docker, there is a folder for images where it is going to maintain all the images and its layers information. Now I can see images by executing Docker images or Docker image ELS, right? So this image, we use this as a base image, and this is our own image. And you can see there is a 5 MB additional size, the 5 MB additional size, right? Now what is there in that 5 MB additional? Our application code. So sometimes in the interview they are going to ask, how can I see the layers of an image? I want to see what are the layers of this image. That to see the layers of an image, we can use one command called docker history image ID you can use, or this tag you can use. Who is assigning the IDs for images? Who is assigning the IDs? You can see there is an ID when it is created, what is the size of that image, what tag we used, with which registry, with repository we tagged. We can see who is assigning these IDs. The Docker daemon. The Docker daemon is assigning the IDs, and we are giving the tags. We are assigning, we are tagging with repository. I can use this tag to see the details, or I can use this image ID. Docker history will show the layers of that image. How many layers are there for that image? Now, if you see, there are a lot of layers, right? And if you see the top layer, what is this? 5.34 MB inside for that image. What is this? The application code. So from where all these layers are coming? There are a lot of other layers. From where all these layers are coming for this image? These layers are from which image? Layers are basically files, multiple files, hierarchy. So in this layer we have 5.3 MB. Which instruction is created this layer? Each and every instruction in a Docker file, every instruction in a Docker file will create a layer that contains some package, that contains some software, that contains some file. So this layer contains some file. This is the size. What do we have? This is the top layer. So what do we have? This one. Did we copied our application code, the var file? This one. But what about all these things? From where these layers has been created or came? I have only 2 instructions in my Docker file, but how come I can see these many layers? All these layers, if you see, all these layers are from which image? That is from this base image. So this is having some container libraries. This is having some container libraries, 123 MB size. It has some OS libraries to interact with kernel. On top of that, they have some softwares. We may have a Tomcat here, we may have a Java installed here. So all these layers are from which image? The base image. Now, does this image contains everything now? Does this image contain everything? Whatever is required to run my application, like container libraries, Java, Tomcat, and our application code. This image contains everything. Now, if I create a container, or if I run this image, basically, if I run this image, container will be created. If I create a container out of this image, does my application will be up and running in that container? Yes. If I run this image, if I create a container out of this image, application will be up and running. Now, I can create a container in a same system also, but in real time, do you build the image and do you deploy image in same server? Our build will happen in a separate server, deployment will happen in a separate server, as I already told. Build a server, your CI server. So build will happen here. Now I want to deploy that application, that image as a container. I have a deployment server. Let's say I'm going to have another server. What is the only software which is required in this server now to deploy that application as a container, that image as a container? What is the only software which is required in this server to deploy that image as a container? We need a Docker software. Now, image is part of this server. Image is part of this server. Now, how can I move that image from this server to this server? Because I want to create a container here. It's not a single file. It's not a single file. It's a layers of multiple files. Can I use this repository concept, that registry concept? One central server where I can maintain my images, this registry, Docker registry. First, I will push the image to registry. I will push the image to registry. Then, can I pull the image in this server and create a container? Can I pull the image from this registry and create a container in this server? Sharing. Docker is a containerization tool. Using Docker, we can build the applications as a containers, and we can ship the applications. We can ship the images and we can run the images. Now, I want to push. So, what is the command to push the image to registry? Now I have created an image. I see that image is created. Now I want to push. What is the command we can use? Docker push. So Docker push. To push the image, I need to mention that image name, that tag, whatever I have used. So do I need to mention completely whatever I have used that image? Suppose if I have created an image with this way, do I need to mention this to push the image also? I don't need to give dot here. Dot is not required. That is only for build. Docker push. Suppose if I have created an image and if I have tagged image with Nexus or JFrog or ECR, suppose something like this, nexus.tcs.com. Within that, I have this repository. Something like this. So if I build this image and if I tag this image with this registry, this repository with this tag, do I need to execute this way? If I built this way, if I have an access repository, if I have created an access repository, can I build and push to the Nexus, my own Nexus this way? If I have an access already created, I can push this way. Now I have tagged with this one. What is this? What is this Docker hands-on? Which registry I am using as of now? It's a Docker Hub registry. Now I can push this image. Even though it's a public registry, do we need to authenticate? Do we need to authenticate with registry? Then how can we authenticate? How can we authenticate? What command we can use for authentication? That registry can be any registry. That can be Docker Hub, that can be Nexus, that can be ECR, anything. What is the command we can use? Docker login. I can mention something like this: -u username, -p password, and your registry URL. The order doesn't matter. I can mention Docker login, that registry URL, then username and password this way. So This registry URL is basically to which registry. Now, if I don't mention this registry URL, to with the registry it will authenticate. Docker Hub. But if I am trying to use ECR, in that case, do I need to mention my ECR registry URL here so that Docker will be using this username and password to authenticate with ECR? Suppose if it is Nexus, do I need to mention my Nexus registry? Like suppose I am using host name or domain name, something like this. Just that Nexus registry. So if I do this way, it will try to authenticate with this username, with this password, with which registry? This one. This can be first or this can be last also. If your Nexus is using IPs, you are not using any domains or host names, can I execute this command, docker login command, something like this, with your Nexus IP and port? Only this. So if I do this way, it will be authenticated with registry? This registry. We need to execute a docker login command. That is any registry if you want to authenticate. Now, we already authenticated. I executed docker login already. I can mention -u, my username, -p, whatever password. If I don't want to reveal this password, I will not use -p. It will ask, it will prompt, type the password. But in case of automation, in case of Jenkins or in case of any automation, can I mention my password without human intervention also, like this? Docker login -u -p in my pipeline. If I want to authenticate with registry, can I mention like this in pipeline? We can mention in a pipeline, but without revealing the password. Can you use Jenkins confidential informations like Jenkins secrets? You can create a secret text for that password. We can create a secret text for that password, and I can refer that secret text in my pipeline. Secret text, Jenkins, it is already done. Right? Secret text, you can create a secret text. In Jenkins, can you create a secret text, secret passwords in Jenkins? I can create a secret and I can refer that secret in my pipeline. Right? So now I don't want to reveal, I am not using -p, and I have not mentioned URL also. So to which registry by default it will authenticate with this username and whatever password I am going to give? What is the default registry? It is going to use Docker Hub. So it is, I have not used -p. It is asking me to type my password. I don't want to reveal my password, so I am typing my password. Now, is authentication is successful? Is Docker is authenticated with registry successful now? Now, will I able to push the image now? Will I able to push the image? This image I want to push now. Docker push this image. It is pushing to the Docker Hub. Now image is pushed to the registry. Now image is pushed to the registry. Now in my deployment server, can I execute some command, something like this? Docker run to create a container. Docker run using that image. If I have some deployment server, by going inside this server, if I execute this command, is it going to pull the image from that registry and create a container out of that image? Do I need to explicitly pull, or even though I directly execute Docker run, if the image is not there in that server, will it pull the image automatically? Do I need to pull the image first to create a container, or even though without pulling, if I execute Docker run Will it internally pull the image if it is not available in that server, in that local registry? It is going to pull internally if that image is not there, right? Or if I want to pull, what command I can use to pull the image? The way I have pushed the image, I can pull the image, I can download the image. What command I can use if I want to pull the image? The way I have pushed the image, can I use like this, docker pull? We can use this docker pull. But if it is a public registry, do I need to authenticate with registry in this server? Do I need to authenticate with this registry in this server to pull the image? If this is a public registry, public repository, to pull the image, do we need to authenticate if it is a public registry? Not required. But in case of private registry, to pull the image also, do I need to authenticate with registry in this server? Do I need to authenticate if this is a private registry to pull the image also? We need to authenticate. Madhu is asking in same question, if it is in Nexus registry, how to use? I already told, while creating image, you are giving this. What you are trying to give this? What is this? While creating an image itself, you are giving this. What is this? What is this, Madhu? Registry details. If you are having Nexus, do you need to tag that image with Nexus? I already told last class also, I told today also, I told multiple times, again same question. Do I need to tag this way? If you are having IPs, you don't have a host name, do you need to tag this way by creating a registry in Nexus? Do I need to tag this way while creating an image itself? I need to tag this way. To push, do I need to authenticate this way? Suppose this is my Nexus registry. Do I need to authenticate this way? Then can I push this way? Whatever I have tagged, something like this, Docker push. So does Docker knows where to push the image? Because you are tagging with complete registry details. You tagged your image with repository. So does Docker knows where to push? Now how Docker knows it has to push the image to Docker Hub? When I'm executing Docker push, how Docker knows it has to push the image to Docker Hub? Do we have all those details in the tag here itself? Now if I build this image and tag this image to the Nexus this way, if I execute Docker push, does Docker push to this registry? If your Nexus is running on this IP, on this port, within Nexus, this is your Docker repository. So the name itself has the repository details. So it is going to push. Now, deployment server, right? Let me create another server just to demonstrate. I can create a container in the same server, but let's consider actual use case. I want to deploy that image in the other server. Image is already pushed to the registry. Does everyone is able to push their images, your images to the registry, guys? Yesterday I have not taken a class, so you had a time. Did you guys install Docker? Did you guys created an image and push the image to your registry? Okay, everyone has built the image. Now let me see how to deploy that application. How to deploy that application. Guys, if required, can I deploy that Docker image when Docker is installed on Amazon Linux, suppose if I install Docker on Amazon Linux, can I create a container in that server even though the Docker is installed on Amazon Linux, or Docker is installed on Red Hat, or Docker is installed on CentOS something else? You can do that. Or Docker, I have installed Docker in my local laptop also. In my local laptop also I have a Docker installed, MacBook. Can I create a container out of that image in my local laptop? Yes, you can do that. So I'm not using any local machines. I'm using AWS machines only. So let me take Ubuntu or any server. I'm taking Ubuntu for deploying that container also. Again, T2.micro. Let's say now let me create a server first. So this is my deployment server. This is my deployment server. This is one machine. So what is the software which is required in this machine? If I want to create a container, Docker container out of that image, what software is required in this machine? The Docker software. So let me connect to this server once the server is ready. Once the server is ready, let me connect to this server and we will create a container. We are going to install Docker in this machine. This is a deployment machine. Now I created an image in this server. From this server, did I push that image to registry? I created an image in this server. I have cloned the code, I have compiled the code, I have created an application package, and I have created a Docker image in this server, and the image is pushed to the registry. Now in this deployment server, do I need to build the code? Do I need to build the package? Or I need to just deploy the Docker package, the Docker container? This is deployment server. Can I directly deploy that image? We will just run that image. So let me connect to this server. Let me connect to this server. Let me open another shell. Do we have a Docker installed in this machine? Do we have a Docker installed in this machine? This is new machine, the deployment machine. We don't have a Docker. So let me install Docker. Whatever way you want to install, you install Docker. First update the package manager. You can use this way, or I already told one more approach. Can I install this way? That Docker has written one shell script. That Docker as a company, they have written a shell script. Can I do this? Can I get that script and can I pass it to the bash so that it will install Docker? If I execute this command also, will it install Docker? The script, there is a script written by Docker. There is a script written by Docker, get.docker.com. This is a shell script written by Docker. I am curling that script. I am getting that script. I am passing it to the bash. So the script will be executed. Even though I do this way, does Docker will be installed now? If you see the script is passed to the bash. So it is executing that script. So it is going to install Docker. So Docker will be installed. Again, as a normal user, will I able to execute Docker commands once the Docker is installed? So Docker is installed. Docker is installed. right? You can see Docker is installed. This version of the Docker is installed. There is a CLI client. There is a server daemon, both installed. Now they are saying to run Docker as a non-privileged user. I mean to say non-root user. Consider adding the user to the group, right? So Docker is installed. If I execute Docker commands, Docker process is running, sudo service status, Docker status, sorry. Docker process also running, but why I am getting this permission denied? Permission denied. As a normal user, we don't have a permissions. I need to use sudo. I need to use sudo. But instead of using sudo every time, can I add this normal user to that group? There is a group called Docker created. If this user belongs to that group, will he get a permissions to execute commands? Which we have already done, right? So can I do this way? Like this also will I able to do? What a dollar user returns? CH mode, change mode. That is changing the permissions to the files. See, no? That is changing the permissions to the files. So if I want to add users to the group, this is the command, user mode. Now, even though if I give dollar user, since I'm executing this command as this user, this dollar user returns what? Ubuntu only. Okay. So I added, but will it reflect in the same shell, same session without sudo? If I execute, even though I have added, will it reflect that in a same shell? No. So that's why let me restart that shell. Now we have a Docker installed and Docker is working. This is a deployment server. Do you have any images, any containers? This is a brand new server. We don't have anything. Now, even though I will not explicitly pull the image, I no need to pull the image to create a container. I don't have any images in this server. I don't have any images in this server. Do I need to explicitly pull the image to create a container? Something like this. Do I need to explicitly pull the image to create a container? Or even though I don't pull explicitly, if I directly execute Docker run also, will it pull the image internally if that image doesn't exist in this server? It will pull. So I can directly create a container. So this is my deployment server. Do I have any software like Java, Tomcat installed now to deploy that application? No. Everything is packaged as a container. Does my image has everything, whatever is required to run that application? Does my Docker image has everything, whatever is required to run that application? Like Java, Tomcat, and our application code. I'll create a container. So what is the command to create a container? What is the command to create a container? There is a command called docker run. Docker run image, whatever image, from which image you want to create. So you can use this option, name, container name. You can give a name for a container. You can give a name for a container. You can give a name for a container and image name, from which image you want to create a container. And also there are some options, right? So when I create a container, when I execute that command, container will be created. Container will be created. So what do we have in this container? Whatever is part of your image, that will be up and running. So in this image, do I have a Java? Do I have a Tomcat plus application code? this image. In that case, do we have my application up and running in this container? Java is part of that, Tomcat is part of that, our var file is also copied already. Does my application will be up and running the moment I create a container? Yes. So each container will have its own IP address also. Each container will have its own IP address. Each container will have its own IP, container IPs. You will have some container IPs, something like this. So on which port the container will be running? Because I have a Tomcat image, I have a Tomcat in this image. On which port container will be running? What is the container port? On which port container will be running? Since I have a Tomcat, what is the port? 8080. So each container will have its own IP, container IP. It's not a server IP. But using this container IP, will I able to access this application, this container from outside the Docker? Outside of Docker, I mean to say from a different machine. From a different machine, will I able to access my application which is running as a container using container IP? No. Container IP is only within Docker, not outside the Docker. We can't access using container IPs from outside. But within this Docker, suppose let's say I have one more application. Let's consider another microservice, another application, another container. That container also will have its own IP and port. Now, if this application want to communicate with this application, or if this application want to communicate with this application, one container want to communicate to other container within Docker, will they able to communicate with each other using these container IPs within the Docker? Within Docker, they will be able to communicate. Within Docker, they will be able to communicate using container IPs. But from outside, from a different machine, will I able to reach my containers using container IPs? From a different machine, will I able to reach? No. But from within the Docker, if one container, one application want to communicate with other application, will they able to communicate using that container IPs and ports? Suppose this application want to talk to this application. Will they able to communicate with each other? Yes. So there is a network concept here, Docker networks. There is a network concept here, Docker networks. We will discuss that in detail, separate session. So this container and this container, if they are running in a same Docker network, they can communicate with each other. So from outside, will I able to reach the container directly using container IP and that port, whatever port container is running from outside of Docker directly, will I able to reach? No. But instead of doing this way, if I want to access from outside, there is a concept called port publish, port forwarding. There is a concept called port publish, or port forwarding, or port mapping. We call it all the same. Port publish, port forwarding, or port mapping, all are same. So what I can do, I can map my container with some host port. I can map my container with some host port. What is the meaning of host here? Using this port publish, port mapping, I can map my container with some host port. I can forward using some host port. So what is host here? Can I call this machine as a host on which my container is running? Can I call this as a host on which my container is running? Host. So while creating a container, I can use one more option called -p. -p. What is this -p stands for? What is this -p stands for? Port publish. That port mapping or port forwarding all are same. So here I can do something like this: host port and container port. So host port and container port. I can map any port which is available in the server. That no need to be a 8080. Any port available in the server. So while creating a container, I can do this way. What is this name, guys? The name for a container. Something like this. If I don't give this name, who will assign the names for a container? Who will assign the names for a container if I don't give this option hyphen name? That who will give the names for a container? The Docker daemon. Docker daemon will assign some fancy names, some random names, some fancy names, some random names. I don't want that random names. I'm giving my own name for a container, some meaningful name. Then port mapping. So this container port, what is the container port for this image? Since I have a Tomcat in this image, what is the container port? What is the container port for this image? Since I have a Tomcat in this image, what is the container port? And which port Tomcat is running? 8080. And host port. Can I give any port which is available in the server, which is not using by any process, any application? Can I give any port which is available in the server? That can be 7070, or that can be 7000, or that can be anything. That can be anything. But if this port is already used by some other process in the server, will I able to use this port? If this port is already used by some other process in the server, will I able to use this port? No. So while creating a container, what should be unique, guys? What should be unique while creating a container? What should be unique? Do we need to have a container names? The name of the container should be unique. Can I have two containers with same name? Can I have two containers with same name? No. Container name should be unique, and also the host port, only the host port. If required, can I have another application, another container also running on same port, container port? Can I have a multiple containers on same port, the container port? Can I have another application deployed on this server, that application also using Tomcat? Can I have two Tomcat containers? Can I have like 5 Tomcat containers in the same server? Yes. Container, you can have n number of containers. As I told already, does each container is isolated from other at a process level in the kernel? I already told the containers is going to be created in a separate user space, network space in that machine, in that kernel. So in that case, it is already isolated. So can I have multiple Tomcat containers in a same Docker server? Yes. But can I use same host port for other containers also? No. Now, how to see what are the ports which are already used in that server? What command I can use, guys? Linux command. What command I can use to see what are the ports which is already used in that server or already listening? Linux command. Can I use netstat? Netstat. That netstat package is not there. This netstat package is not there. So I will install this package. Net tools. Now these ports, 22 port. The 22 port is used by which program, which process? Already 22 port is listening. Which program, which process is using that 22 port? I use sudo so that I can see the process also. So this port 22 is listened by which? SSH. 53. This 53 will be used by which service basically? DNS service. The DNS service. Okay. DNS lookups will happen via this port. Now can I use this port as a host port, or can I use this as a host port now? Because which is already listened by other process. So I can use whatever it is, something like this. So if I do this port mapping, if I create a container this way, will I able to access my container by using this host IP and host port? From outside Docker, will I able to access that container by using host IP and host port? From outside Docker, will I able to use that host IP and host port to access that container? That host port. So what is host IP? What is host IP? Does your server will have an IP address? Your server IP. So what is the server IP? So this is the server IP, right? So using this we can do that. There is no maximization here. I can only reduce the zoom. Okay, so it's already maximized. I can only reduce the zoom. So this is external server from different server. That can be any server. From the server I want to access this container. In that case, can I use host IP and host port? So your server also has a IP address. Your server also has a IP. Like this server, let's say in this server you created a container. Your server has a public IP. Your server has a private IP. But from internet, if I want to access, from different network, if I want to access, do I need to use a public IP? This is my public IP of this server. And this is the private IP of that server. One second. This is the private IP of that server. Now host IP, host IP. So host IP, something like this. Host IP and host port. So from outside, if I want to access, can I use this IP if it is from an internet, from a different network, public IP? And if I created a container on this port mapping, what port I need to use to access from outside? Do I need to use this container port 8080, or do I need to use this host port 7070? If I created, I can use this host port. So request goes to this server. Request goes to this server. What the server does your application is running directly in the server, or your application is running as a container? Your application is running as a container. So if the request goes to this one, what the Docker does internally? Does Docker forward that request? Port mapping, that port forwarding. Does Docker forward that request to that container? So Docker, what Docker does? The Docker will forward that request to that container. Since you have mapped, you have done the port mapping, Docker will forward the request to the container where your application is running. This way, will I able to access that container from outside? This way, by doing the port mapping, port forwarding, will I able to access that application which is running as a container from outside? we can do that. Okay, it is very important. Sometimes in the interview they are going to ask what is a Docker port mapping, or what is port publish, port mapping, or port forwarding. What is that in Docker? So each and every container will have its own IP. We cannot access that containers using container IPs from outside Docker. If I want to access that container from outside Docker, the process which is running inside that container, I want to access from outside, from a different machines, outside Docker. What concept I can use? Can I do this port mapping, port forwarding while creating a container? Using that we can access. Now let me do that. Do I have the image in this server? As of now, any image is there in this server? Do I have any container in this server? This is new server. We don't have anything. Now I want to deploy that application as a container. Can I use this command? Docker run hyphen name, some name, meaningful name, -p. That can be anything, any port which is available. It no need to be 8080, something like this. Then the image name. So here, while creating this image, I mean to say while giving this image name, again registry name, your repository name, and a tag. Suppose you guys created image with colon tag as one and you push that image. If I don't give any tag here, what will be the image it will be considered? What tag it will be considered? Colon latest. If that image not exist in the repository, if that image not existing in this registry, this repository, will it able to pull the image to create a container, or it will throw error? Or it will throw error if that image not exist? It will throw error. So make sure you are giving the right tag. So I created this image and I push this image. Now do I have this image in this registry, this repository with this? Now I am directly executing Docker run. Do we have this image locally available? If I execute Docker images, do I have this image in the local registry? No. Does this Docker run will internally pull the image to create a container? It will pull the image internally. Let me execute this command. Do you see it is saying unable to find this image locally? Unable to find this image locally. Do you see is it pulling the image? Docker is pulling that image now. Since it's a public registry, public repository, did I authenticate to pull the image? Did I execute a Docker login? No. Now I created a container using Docker and it has pulled the image and it has created a container. I have not used -d. There is a one more option called -d. What is -d stands for? There is a one more option called -d. What is this -d stands for? Detached mode, background mode. Create a container in a background mode. I have not used that one. If you see, is container is created in an interactive mode, and do you see container process is started in an interactive mode? Do you see? Container is started in an interactive mode. Do you see Tomcat? It is saying Tomcat is started. How come Tomcat is started the moment I create a container? Do we have the Tomcat in that image? We have a Tomcat is started. Now will I able to access this application using this public IP of that server, because I'm accessing from internet? Public IP of that server. Public IP of that server. Then what is happening is why it is not okay. So public IP of that server. Which port I need to use? Now, what port? Since I created a container on host port mapped with 7070, I have to use 7070. And within that, this is my application context. Maven hyphen web hyphen. What is my application context? This one. Do I need to open the port firewall AWS concept? What port needs to be opened now? Do I need to open 8080 or 7070? Which port I need to open? We need to open this host port. So let me go to the security group, the server security group. Let me open that host port 8080. Sorry, this is 7070. 7070. Now we created a we open the firewall. Now if I execute now like this, I'm able to access. Do you see? Am I able to access that application? So I have customized this code. Actually, I have customized this code to see the server IP address. What is this IP? I mean to say from where I am getting this response. This is where my application is hosted. Do you see this? What is this IP 172.17.0.2? Is it your server IP or is that your container IP where your application is hosted? I have customized this one. So this 172.17.0.2, is it the server IP or container IP? What is the server IP, guys? If you see, what is the server IP? Server IP is not that one. So what is the server IP? This is public IP and this is private IP 172.31.47.0.103. So what is this IP? I have written some code actually. I have written some code in this application. I have written some code in this application which is printing that IP. So I have written some code here. The IP address, the server IP address, right? I've written some code, so that is what it is printing here. So what is this IP? Now it's a container IP. So my application is hosted on a container. Now I am getting a response from container. My application is hosted on a container. So did I install any softwares? Did I install any softwares like Java, Tomcat? Did I copied my WAR file manually to this server? Did I manually copied my application code to this server? Did I install any software like Java, Tomcat? How come my application is up and running in this server? We deployed our application as what? We deployed our application as a container, as a container. So using containers, will I able to quickly deploy my applications? Suppose I want to deploy this application in another server, production server. Can I simply create a container out of this image so that my application will be up and running in that production server? Will I able to quickly deploy my applications as a containers? Yes, no. Will I able to quickly deploy my applications as a containers? And also, if it works in one environment, one server, if it works in one environment, one server, will it work in other environment, other server? Because the image itself has everything. Do you see any compatibility issues like software mismatches, software version mismatches, or configuration mismatches? No. And also, will I able to deploy multiple applications in this Docker server? Will I able to utilize my system resources more efficiently? Will I able to deploy multiple applications in this Docker server? Each application is isolated from other. Yes. So when I created a container, the container, when the started the container, Tomcat is started. How it has started, that we will discuss in a Docker file sessions. So I just created a container. Did I manually executed Tomcat that commands like catalina.sh within the container? No. So there is an instruction. There is an instruction in the Docker. There is an instruction in that image. When I start this container, execute that command. So automatically that command got executed. You no need to manually do that. That we will discuss in a Docker file instructions. Okay. Now this way, will I able to deploy one more application also in this server? Let's say another application that can be a Node.js application, that can be a Java application, that can be a Python application, that can be any application. If I create an image for that application, and if I have the image for that application, will I able to deploy that application also as a container in this server? We can do that. So let me show. I will try to deploy one more application. We'll do that. Just 1 minute. I will be back 1 minute. Okay, let's continue. So let me take one more application. Let's take this application. One more application. Let's take this application. Again, it's a Java-based web application. It's again Java-based web application. There is a pom.xml which creates the application package. And also for this project also we have a Docker file. Within this project also we have a Docker file. Using this Docker file, I am using Tomcat as a base image and I am copying that application package to this one. So if I create an image for this application, will I able to run this application also as a container wherever I want to run? If I create an image for this application, will I able to run this application wherever I want to run, whether it's your local laptop where you have Docker is installed, or whether it's a cloud server, whether it's your own data center server where you have a Docker installed, wherever you want to run this application, if that is available as an image and image is part of your registry, wherever you want to deploy, will you able to deploy? We can do that. Now let me take this code. Let me build this code. So build, I will do in this server where I have already installed, Maven is there, Java is there, Maven is there, Java is there, and Docker also there. I'll clone that code to this server and build this server. This is my build server, let's say. So here I will clone that code, this project. Let me go inside that project. Do I have a Docker file for this project as well? Within that application, do I have a Docker file for that project? This one. Then I don't have this application package created. Without creating application package, if I try to create this Docker image, will it work? So I want to tag this application to different repository. Within Docker registry, within this Docker Hub registry, separate repository, something like this, or web application or web app, whatever it is. Now, see that error message. Is image successfully created or failed? It's failed. What it is trying to say? Step 2. It is failed. The copy is failed. Why it is failing? It is saying no source files were specified, which means this file is not there. Do we have this file? Do we have, first of all, the directory, target directory in this? No. So let me create an application package. We can give something like this. So if the files, whatever files you are trying to copy, if it is there in a different folder, even though you give the full path, it won't take. Whatever files you want to copy to the image, that should be part of what directory? While building, you are giving something. Whatever files you are trying to copy to the image, that should be part of which directory? Even though this var file is in a different folder, even though I give full path, will it take? Or the file should be part of your Docker build context? Whatever files you are trying to copy, even though this file is there in a different folder, even though you give full path, it won't take. That files, whatever folders you are trying to copy, that should be part of which one? That should be part of your build context. That is most important, guys. What is the meaning of this build context? We are trying to build the image from the directory. So whatever files, whatever folders you are trying to copy to the image using Docker file, can I have that files outside of the build context? Can I have those files or folders outside of the build context? No, it should be part of your build context. That is the meaning of build context. Clear? What is this build context? Why we are giving that build context? Here I am giving dot represents current directory. That is your build context. So now I am first creating an application package. First I am creating an application package. Now I have an application package. Can I create a Docker image now? Since I have that package, whatever I am trying to copy, that is part of my build context now. That is part of my build context. Do you see there is a target folder? There is a target folder. Within the target folder, I have that file, which I am trying to copy using Docker. On top of this image, I am trying to copy this one. So while building image, I am giving dot. The dot represents current directory. So I'm trying to build this image. Is image created successfully this time? Can I see this image? Docker images. Docker images. So this image has Tomcat plus that application code. Without pushing this image to registry, if the image is not part of the registry, will I able to create a container for that image in other server? In other servers, will I able to create a container without moving that image to registry? No. Now, how to push that image? We already authenticated. I no need to again do the Docker login. We already authenticated. Will I able to push this image like this? Docker push. Image is getting pushed. Now can I go and see that image in my registry? I am using Docker Hub, that public registry, hub.docker.com. And if I log in with my credentials, my registry, within that registry, I have repositories. If you see, this is one repository. Can I see that tag? Only one. This is the tag I used. Can I see that image in the registry now? Yes. Now, if required, will I able to deploy that in a deployment server? Will I able to create a container for that application? Here, the problem we can do that. The problem here is while creating this container, I have not done in a detached mode. The container is running in an interactive mode. Now, if I press Control C, what will happen? If I press Control C, what will happen? Does this container will stop? Does that container will be stopped? Since I have created a container in an interactive mode, the container will be stopped. Now the container is stopped. If the container is stopped, will I able to access my application? This application, my container is stopped. Will I able to access this application? No. Now container is stopped. If you see the container command, let me show you. Docker ps or docker container ls. You can use these commands. If I do this, I don't see containers because it is going to show only running containers. It is not going to show stopped containers. My container is there, but it is stopped. Do I need to again execute Docker run for that application, that Maven web application? Do I need to again execute Docker run? The container is already there, but it has just stopped. Do I need to execute Docker run again? Not required. If you see container is there, but which is stopped, you can see Docker ps-a or Docker container, both are same. Container ls-a. Container is stopped. It is there, but it is stopped. If required, will I able to start this stopped container by using some command like this? Docker start. You can use container name or container ID. Again, container is started. Again, container is started for that application. Now, will I able to access this application since container is started? Do you see? Now, same way, will I able to deploy this image also, this application also as a container, another application, this application, another image. Let me do that. What is the command to create a container, guys? This time I will use -d. What is -d stands for? Detached background mode. -name, some name, -p. Can I do this way again? Already one container is using that port 7070, already one container. You can see that host port 7070 is already used. Can I again use that port for another container for another process? If you see, If you see that 7070, which process is using? If any request goes to this server on this port, who will process that request? If any request goes to this server on this port, who is going to process that request? That 7070. The process also you can see here. Who is going to process that request? If any request. Now I am using that server IP. I am using that port. Request is going to server. Who is forwarding or who is processing that request? If you see here, any request goes to server on this 7070 port. Who is processing that request here? Docker is processing that request. What this Docker proxy is doing? Whenever request goes to this server on this port, what this Docker proxy is doing? Is the Docker proxy is forwarding the request to that mapping container, respective container, for whatever container it is mapped. This one, right? So can I create a one more container on same host port? Now I want to deploy this application, another application. Will I able to use same host port? No. That can be any available port. Then this image, Java-web-application. If I don't give a tag, what tag it will use, guys? What tag it will try to use to pull the image and create a container? Guys, am I audible? I don't see much response. Colon latest, okay. So do I have that image? Do we have that image with colon latest? Do we have that image in the registry? Do we have that image in the registry? Do you see that image in the registry? With that tag colon latest, do we have? No. In that case, if I execute this way, will I get a error? Will I get a error saying that some error? If I try to do this way, will I get an error? Let me show that. It is not there find locally. It is not able to find this image locally. It is trying to pull from registry. Do you see? It is throwing some error response from daemon. This is not found. It is not found, right? So that's why make sure you are giving the right tags. Now this is the tag I have. Suppose if I give like this, the registry is correct, repository is also correct, but the tag is not correct. We don't have an image with this tag. If I execute this way also, will it work? No. So this is the image, right? Now this image is not there locally, but do you see that image available in the registry? And do you see is that pulled and created a container? Now, how many containers are running in this server? How many containers are running in this server? 2 containers. Now, both are isolated from each other. If something goes wrong with this application, this container, do we have an impact on this application, this container, even though both are running in the same server? It is running on their own process, their own Java, their own Tomcat. We don't have a Java installed in this machine. We don't have a Java installed in this machine. We don't have a Tomcat running in this machine. But where exactly Java and Tomcat is there? Which is part of inside this container. Now, to access this application from outside, can I use this host port? To access this application from outside, can I use that host port 8080 and that host IP, this IP? Within that, my application context is Java-web- app. This is my application context. But let me open the port 8080. not in this server. This server, wherever I have created this server. Now let me access. Now can I see my application is up and running as a container, both applications? And if there is any issue, in this application, let's say this application, is it going to impact the other application which is running as a container? No. And also, let's say there is a change in this code. I want to deploy the latest code. In that case, do I need to bring down this application? Do I need to stop this application to deploy that other application, which is isolated from each other? Now, what is the process? Now, this application is running as a container. Now, I want to, let's say there is a change in the code. What is the process to deploy that code again as a container? What needs to be done? Let's say I'm modifying that code as a developer modified that code. There is a change in the code. This application, there is a modification. The developer modified something. He want to give some additional details. Developer modified the code. What or how you can update, how you can deploy that latest code now? Let's say the developer modified this code. Bengaluru, Karnataka. Now, developer modified some code. What it takes you to deploy that latest code as a container now? What process you have to follow now? Now the code is modified. I want to deploy that code again. What process? What do you think you can do that so that it will be deployed? Yes, just explain in a step. So if I have a pipeline, it will do that. So I don't have a pipeline, whether it's a pipeline or manual. Can I do this again? Clone the latest code. I mean to say, get the code. Then create application package, new package. Then after creating an application package, what is the next step? I'm just creating an application package. After that, do I need to create a Docker image? Create a Docker image. Do I need to create a Docker image for that new code? Do I need to create the Docker image for that new code? The Docker package. Then can I push that code? I mean to say, can I push that Docker image to registry? Then delete old container and create a new container with the new image. If I do this, will my application will be deployed? My latest code will be deployed if I do all these steps, whether you do manually or whether you do pipeline. If you do these steps, will it be deployed? Will the latest code will be deployed now if I do this step? Now, why we need to maintain all the versions of the images in the registry? While creating one more time the image, I don't want to create again same way. Instead of using this tag, I will use one more tag. Why we need to maintain, why it is recommended to maintain all the versions of your Docker images also. Why it is recommended? Because if something goes wrong with this latest image, the latest code is not working as expected, if I have a previous version of the image somewhere, will I able to recreate the containers with previous code, previous image? Will I able to roll back, or I mean to say, will I able to revert? So if you don't maintain all the images, all the versions of the images, if you are always maintaining only one image, even though there is a change, if something goes wrong, if you don't have a previous images, previous version of the images, will you able to roll back or revert the containers? No. So that's why we will maintain all the versions. So if you are doing in a pipeline way, how can you maintain this uniqueness? The tag pipeline way. If you are doing, you are giving, or you are creating images using pipeline. If I am doing in a pipeline way, how can I maintain all the versions? Can I use build number in pipeline? Do you able to get the build number from pipeline? Will I able to get the build number in a pipeline? Will you able to get build number? Something like this. One build number environment variable in a Jenkins. Can I use that build number as a tag here? So for each build, do we have a unique build number in pipeline? So you can build this way. Nitin is asking, why do we need to delete the old container? Why we need to delete the old container? It is not like a server where you are going to update your var file. You are completely deleting that container and you are recreating the container with another image. It is not like you manually take that var file, right? You cannot take that manually, that var file, and go and copy into the container. So you created another image for that latest code. You created another image for that latest code, right? You created another image. If you want to deploy that latest code, do you need to create a container out of that new image? You created another version of the Docker image for that change. So you need to delete the old container and deploy a new container. That is what the meaning of release, right? So we can do this way. Let me do it quickly. So let me go to the build server. I already have this code. Let me go inside this code and get the latest code. If the build is failed, first of all, season, do you go to the image creation step? If the build is failed, first of all, do you go to the image creation step? If your application, let's say there is a compilation issue, or let's say there is a Sonar Cube issue, or let's say, right, the test cases are failed, will you go to the Docker image creation step if there is a failure in the build? No. So first you are going to compile the code, execute the test cases, do the Sonar check, then only you will go to the build stage. If that build is successful, I mean to say the image creation is successful, it will push the image. Whatever you want to use in a pipeline, you can get the build number, or you can get the branch name. In your pipeline, you can get whatever name, like branch name, build number. You use that as a tag to the Docker image. Anything. That is one name. That's it. In your pipeline, you can get anything. Will you able to get the branch name? From which branch you are creating the, I mean to say, your pipeline is executed? Will you able to get the branch name or commit ID also? If you want to get, will you able to get the commit ID? use that IDs or use that branch names or use the build numbers as a Docker tags for image tags, whatever you want to do based on your use case. I have just given an example. You can take the build number. If you don't want to take the build number, take commit ID or take the branch name or combination of branch name and commit ID. That is Jenkins, right? So now let me pull the code. I pull the latest code. Now let me create an application package for the latest code. Now, do I need to create an image for this change? Docker hands-on / maven -web application. I am giving 2, something like this. Now, I will push this image. I will push this image. Docker push. I will push this image. D is missing. Docker push. I am pushing this image. Now in my deployment server, did I close that? Okay. So let me connect to deployment server. In my deployment server, in this deployment server, can I create a container out of that new change, new image in this deployment server? Now I push the image. I push the image to the registry. Now in my deployment server, right? Let me connect to this deployment server. And this is out of this image. This is out of this image. Now can I remove this container by executing this command? Docker rm -f, removing the image forcefully. Removing the container forcefully. I am removing the container. Now can I execute this command? Whatever, like 70 with 80. And instead of that previous image, now the new image, version 2. Now, if I do this, I don't have this image locally. Again, it is pulling the image from repository. Now the container is created out of this image. Now, if I access this application, can I see that change? Can I see the latest application deployed as a container? If I refresh this, do you see? Can I see that change? So this way, will I able to deploy my applications whenever there is a change in the code? Instead of doing it manually, can I have these steps in my pipeline? Whether it's a scripted pipeline or a declarative pipeline, can I do this in a pipeline way? If I have a pipeline, if I have an automation, whenever developer commits the code, will be deployed as a container by creating an image, pushing the image, and deploying that image as a container? If I have that as a pipeline, do I need to do anything manually? Can I have an automation? Can I integrate Dockers in a pipeline way? Automation. Docker works well with automation also. This is what we can do. Like this, will I able to deploy multiple applications? Like this, will I able to deploy multiple applications? We can deploy multiple applications. Again, how many containers I can create in this server, guys? Sometimes in the interview they'll ask how many containers we can create in one server. As I already told, how many containers we can create, it depends on the system resources. Each container is isolated from other, but what is common for all the containers which is running in this machine? What is common for all the containers which is running in this machine? the system resources like CPU, memory, and also the kernel. Does each and every container will have its own operating system, or it will use host system kernel? Host system kernel. Okay. So tomorrow I'll continue. Tomorrow I will continue with again commands only. First we will get familiar with commands, like all the image related commands, all the container related commands. We will get familiar tomorrow. Once that is done, we will go for a Docker file, advanced concepts like how to write a Docker file, what are the instructions we can use Docker file, what is multi-stage Docker file. We will see that later. Slowly we'll understand volumes, networks, and other stuff. So Dayanand is asking, in this process, we have small outage, small downtime, because I'm deleting old container and I'm creating a new container. We have a small outage. But if I use containers with container orchestration like a Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, if I go with containers with container orchestration like Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, we can manage the containers, we can deploy the containers without outage. So first we are learning only containers. We are not going to use only containers in real time, because if I am using only containers, if something goes wrong with this container, does container will be automatically created? If I use only containers, if something goes wrong with this container, does container will be automatically created? No. And also, if there is a lot of load on this application, will I need to increase the number of replicas, decrease the number of replicas. Will I able to do that using only Docker, only containers? Will I able to scale up, scale down the containers? Will I able to load balance the containers? No. That is where container orchestration comes into picture, that you will understand once you go for a Docker Swarm and Kubernetes. So first we are learning what is container, then we can understand what is container orchestration. So I recommend don't by heart any command or step 1 do this, step 2 do this. Understand the concept and apply the concept. Now I have one application. I want to deploy that application as a container. What it takes? Guys, suppose I have one application, let's say this Node.js application. Let's consider this Node.js application. If I want to deploy this application in a container way, containerized deployment, what it takes? What needs to be done so that I can deploy this application as a container? We need to create an image. To create an image, do we need a Docker file? Do we need to write a Docker file to create an image? So that image should contain what? That image should contain the application code plus required softwares. The required softwares. So the application code plus required softwares. So where can I write all those instructions? In a Docker file. If you see, there is a Docker file for this one also. What base image I am using for this project, Node.js project? What I am using? Base image. Node software. Using these instructions, what I am trying to do? I am copying all the source code, whatever is there in the current folder. It is a Node.js project. We are copying as is. You are not compiling, you are not creating any node packages. You are copying as is all the Node.js script, whatever is there, to the image. Current directory from the server to the current directory to the image. Then you are executing npm install and you are starting the application. So using this Docker file, if I create a image and if I create a container out of that image, does this Node.js application will be up and running wherever you deploy? Do you need to install any softwares in the servers to deploy this application like Node.js? Do you need to manually copy your source code there if you are using Docker concept? Not required, right? So understand the concept. Basics are very, very important. Don't by heart. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Okay. I'll continue tomorrow, guys. We'll continue with comments again. I have to cover few more Docker image related comments and container related comments. But I already shared the comments. I already shared the documents. I have shared 3 documents, right? I have shared the 3 documents. One is the PPT which I was showing, and one more is only Docker cheat sheet. Docker cheat sheet contains the comments. If you want to quickly go through, what is Docker and what commands, right? I explained what is Docker run, what is this Docker PS, right? So we will cover tomorrow all those commands, but go through this one. Sneha is asking what is -d stands for in Docker. What is -d stands for, guys? Detached. One more guy is asking one question. If say first build is successful, next 10 builds is failed, then how tagging will work? If you are using pipeline, if you are Jenkins concept, whether build is failed or successful, will the build number will be changed? Will the build number will be changed? Whether it's a successful or failure, do you get the same build number if you are using build number? Will it be same or it will be changed? Let's say this is my pipeline. I am taking build number, environment variable, the Jenkins variables. Now I am tagging my image something like this. Let's say this one. In my pipeline, I have this one. So for the first time, what will be the build number when the pipeline is executed for the first time? What is the build number, guys? 1. Then what will be the actual image tag? What will be the actual image tag for the first time? 1, right? You are building this image this way. You are pushing also this way. You are also pushing this way. So 1. Let's say next 10 times build is failed. First of all, if the build is failed, do you go to the image creation state? No, right? Let's say first 10 builds is failed. Next 11th build is successful. So in that case, what will be the tag if the 11th build is successful? Colon 11. Then what image you are pushing? Even though you are pushing this way, what is the build number? It is going to, what is the tag value? 11. So when you deploy also, which tag you will use? When you are doing Docker run also, which tag you will use? Colon 11. Some unique number you are tagging, unique number or name. That can be a build number, or if you know how to get the commit ID or branch name. Can I able to get the branch name in my pipeline? The branch name. Can I use that branch name? Combination of branch name and build number, or combination of branch name and commit ID also as a tag, some unique number. That is how you will tag the images. That is how you will maintain the images. All the versions of the images. Clear? Someone was asking that question. That is nothing to do with the Docker, this build number and all. Somehow you need to manage the unique numbers, unique build. I mean to say, for each and every build, you need to have the image. If I am maintaining manual, I can say 1, 2, 3 like that. But if I have a pipeline, that build number should be unique. You can get the build number this way, that tag this way, or branch name, or commit ID that way. So try to deploy the applications whatever I have deployed today as a containers. Go through the commands which I discussed today and go through the documents and try to practice. I'll continue tomorrow, guys. Thank you. If anyone has any question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'll stop the session. We'll continue tomorrow. Chandan is asking, is there any demo? I mean to say, video for Docker and Jenkins integration. In the last class itself, I requested everyone to go through that video. Did you attend last class, Chandan? Did you attended last class? Then did I give the URL also? Like where is that video available? So that is I have given as an assignment also. Whenever you get a time, I ask you to do it as an assignment. Few people are already done. So if you miss, let me show you that URL again. So this is our YouTube channel. We have one video uploaded, but you no need to look for that video because you already know Jenkins. You already know Docker at least. Whatever I have done manually, can't you able to put in a pipeline? Whatever I have done in manually without referring that video also you should be able to do now, because you know what is Jenkins, you know what is Docker now, at least what is image, what is container. Whatever steps I have manually done, same steps you can put in the pipeline without referring video also. You should be able to do that. So this is the video where I am giving the link. Go through that video. If possible, try to do this assignment, try to complete this. So this is the video I'm sharing one more time. I'll share here, okay, in the Skype group. Okay, you can refer this. And also there is a one more video, how to use Nexus, how to use Nexus as a Docker repository. There is another video, I will share that link also. How to use Nexus as a Docker registry instead of Docker hands-on. How to use Nexus as a Docker registry, I'll share that link also. Whenever you get some time, go through that. Okay guys, any questions? Okay, I'll start the session. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.